Hey there, everybody. This is Harshit, and we're shooting an amazing podcast with Daniel here. Daniel's actually a digital marketer, and we thought, why not dig deeper into digital marketing? Because Daniel is a funnel-focused ghostwriter for SaaS founders, and because we're also into SaaS, we have an audience of SaaS founders. We thought we gotta bring Daniel here and get some inputs there. So, Daniel, tell us about what you do. Tell us about how you are a funnel-focused ghostwriter for SaaS founders. How long have you been in the industry, and how do you think the landscape is like right now? So go ahead, start with your intro.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. If my voice cuts out on me at all, I got a couple of cough drops. Got a little bit of a cold. I'm working off. So, but anyways, yeah. Funnel-focused ghostwriting. I think there's a big market for ghostwriters now. Especially on LinkedIn, where it's a text-heavy platform. It requires a certain level of finesse to do it the right way, and there's a lot of nuances to the space that a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration right when they get started. And so I gained a lot of insights when I started writing on LinkedIn about 4 years ago. And as time went on, I started to sell those insights or share those insights to other creators, and I started freelancing eventually. And it kind of fell into ghostwriting because I've been a writer my entire life. Ever since I was 17 years old, I've been writing in my journal and building out content, if you will. I started doing slam poetry, started performing, so on and so forth. That's a little bit of my backstory. But I realized that ghostwriting was something that people really needed. And as I've become a ghostwriter, and I've had quite a handful of clients at this point, I've realized that there is a lack of I guess there's a lack of focus on the funnel when it comes to creating content. A lot of times it's like, yeah, we're just going to put it out there. We're going to share the information, and the clients will start showing up. And it doesn't quite work like that. So I started integrating email into what I do, helping to actually push people to that funnel and build out that list of subscribers, and actually bring in some clever copywriting in the email realm, where it's like, yeah, we can actually do some direct response email and help you make sales on the back end, where it's not just creating content and creating top of funnel brand awareness, but actually pushing people through and turning them into ultimately clients for your business. And SaaS is just an area that I think is fascinating. I think SaaS founders are really interesting people. They have great stories. A lot of them bootstrapped what they did. A lot of them have former experience in other companies, and so I just think it's a really interesting space to be in, and it's underserved when it comes to ghostwriting. So yeah, I love the software industry. I think there's so much opportunity to sell that to people on Twitter and LinkedIn and so on and so forth. So it just seemed like a match made in heaven. So yeah, that's a little bit of that story.
Got it, Daniel. I think that's super interesting. We're actually going to dive deeper into SaaS and why software you think it's so scalable and everything. But to start, we actually want to understand, what does funnel focus mean? Is it like setting up on HubSpot, like setting up a complete CRM on HubSpot? So what exactly is it?
Yeah, so I wouldn't do the CRM for them. I mean, that may be a service I do at some point, but actually having their profile set up in a sense where people are driven to take an action. A lot of times LinkedIn profiles offer a ton of opportunity to overwhelm people. So a lot of what I do is focus on actually making sure that we're driving a result, whether that's to, maybe one client is looking to just grow influence. And so we want to increase the reach of their content. We want to actually give people a reason to follow them. So helping them orient their headline image and their banner image so that it actually reaches to that specific person and speaks to what value they offer to that individual, and drives them to hit the notification bell, follow them, or potentially subscribe to their email. Or someone has something more specific and they have a very specific product offering, and they're not necessarily looking to become an influencer. They just want to gain enough influence that they can make sales, actually pushing people to the featured section, having a really solid call to action and an image in that area where it's linked to a specific landing page or a calendar, whatever it is they specifically want to do. And then also building out their about section to tell a good story about who they are, and also drive people to take that action on top of that. So I'd say it's a mix of a lot of things, but just being focused around the idea that we want people to show up to your page and actually do something, and not just, put a picture of the ocean, for instance, or a mountain range, like actually taking advantage of those opportunities, because, a lot of people can get a lot of views on their profiles. So it's like, we want to, create that opportunity for lightning to strike, if you will.
Got it. So one thing was, I was actually going through your content a lot, because I'm a content creator myself, been creating a lot of podcasts and more from the Web3 point of view and into NFTs and a lot on Twitter as well, x.com now. But then when we started building this SaaS, we understood that there are people who are completely focused on this because I never realized, right? I never realized, okay, a banner, yes. And what you were actually talking about, like having a mountain. So I basically, because I'm in Toronto, I had the view of Toronto in my banner, which is not so important. That's a spot. It's like a billboard. It's like advertising where you can talk about what you're building. You can talk about your SaaS. You can talk about your ethos or whatever the brand marketing logo is. I think that's something I really picked from you as well. So I think that was super important what you just shared. And got it. So it's basically funneling the customers and directing them to the profile so that you get more leads, you get more sales, you get customers, and then that's when the value add happens. Well, that's perfect. I think there's definitely a market in this for sure. But again, because after November, the world has definitely changed once ChatGPT came out, and it just blows my mind. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and then they just think ChatGPT is just a platform, an app to write essays. That's all they think it is, which is not the case. Exactly.
Yeah, not even close.
Exactly.
That is a
Because
tool you could use it for, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot more going on.
absolutely, there's a lot more going on, guys. Absolutely, and there's so many plugins that you can integrate as well. But my question is, so let's say someone wants to add value to their content and also do digital marketing with funnel focused content writing. How do you think AI affects? Because people can also use ChatGPT as well, but they wouldn't have the know-how of the prompts of the direction to think, which you do, which you possess over the years of writing. So how do you think that is going to play around with the people who want to get into something like this?
So let me make sure I understand. So how is ChatGPT going to affect people who may want to just do it on their own, for instance? Yeah. So if you go on ChatGPT and say like, maybe you want to be really lazy about it, and you just take an article and you're like, hey, take this article, write it out into a LinkedIn post. It will do it. It'll write it out into a LinkedIn post, but it's going to sound the same. It's going to have the same like fluffy, let's all come together, kumbaya, ChatGPT language that I can't stand. It's going to have all the emojis that are just a dead giveaway, like the little star emoji. No one uses that, but ChatGPT loves it. And then it's also going to drop like the most worthless hashtags that you could possibly think of. They're not going to drive any SEO for your content. LinkedIn is old school. The hashtags, you follow them, and then the followers get to see what's based off of that hashtag that's being shared. So I know tons of people are like, I don't believe in hashtags. They don't do anything on LinkedIn. As far as I'm concerned, they do a lot, and they've changed my career using them. And so I feel as if we're using those hashtags the way that ChatGPT would want us to, they would probably be completely worthless, and they wouldn't actually do anything to connect you to a larger audience. So that's just a few examples, but just on the fact that it doesn't sound like you, and LinkedIn wants to have perspectives that are unique, and the AI algorithm is actually watching for you to tell stories and actually depict your perspective within an overall issue. If you're just spitting out, fun fact after fun fact about your industry, yeah, it may get reach potentially, but more than likely, as time goes on, the algorithm is being trained more and more to spot that stuff and downplay it and not give you nearly as much reach. So I think as time goes on, people are also just becoming more and more skeptical of whether or not something's been written by ChatGPT or if it was actually written by that person. Correct. So I think bringing in video and actually showing your face and doing the stuff that you're probably already doing, and I'm doing a little bit as well, and telling that story and that unique perspective is what the algorithm is favoring. So all signs show that, like, yeah, ChatGPT is encouraged, but you have to put your own spin on it. And no matter what, you got to take it the rest of it'll give you the prompt. If you're able to prompt it, and you're able to actually manipulate ChatGPT the right way, you still got to give it that human touch and add in your detailed perspective into it. That's my take, at least. So did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. That definitely does.
Cool.
One more thing, Daniel, is what I'm actually seeing is ChatGPT is nothing but an LLM. It's a large language module, right? It's just a large language model. And what has it been trained on? It's been trained on human data. And what are 99% of the people? It's all average. They're not content writers. They're not ghost writers. It's just average information, and then it's just putting in words, and then the output is just like that. But I think what you're saying is making a lot of sense, because now everybody has that superpower, ChatGPT. And when everybody has that superpower, it's no longer a superpower. So I think that's when you have to know how to differentiate yourself. And like you said, being on camera, showing your face, building a brand with that is super important there.
Totally.
And
Totally with you on that.
yes, sir. And one more thing, I was actually going through I did a whole deep dive into your LinkedIn. And what I see is you're a community builder first. So you're actually building a community while putting on of content, and then also sharing strategies as well. So can you like tell why community important is so important? Because I started off with community building in Web3. I was just doing Discord moderation and then doing community building. Now founding member
Sweet.
at a music label. So that's when I learned that community building is super important. But why is it? Like, why do you think it is for SaaS founders?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. It's definitely in my wheelhouse. And yeah, I'm big on community. I pretty much all my content comes from community. So it's not just that I'm getting organic reach from it and I'm getting networking opportunities and I'm getting new partnerships and people in my realm that can refer me, refer people to me. I do get a lot of referrals just from people that are in my community, but it's also that my content gets generated from the comments section. So I'll take my content, basically my comments that do really well throughout the week, not even do really well, just that I'm like, oh, I said something cool here, and it's driven from someone else's perspective. So I'm not just reaching into the sky, pulling an idea out and hoping it does well. I know that it's based off of something that organically came from someone else's mind or a conversation I had. I reshare that to Twitter. I share it there if it does really well in the land of pirates and hooligans and neurodivergence. Like if it does really well on Twitter, I know it's going to do well in the high-fiving, ass-kissing community that is LinkedIn. So then I bring it back over. I give more context on top of it. I share more details. I go into more depth. Then those that do really well, I turn them into tweet threads and I move them back over to Twitter. So it's like a bounce back and forth effect. And then the tweet threads I screenshot, I turn those into carousels. And so I have like weeks worth of content that comes literally from one individual comment. And so community is not just an idea generator, but it's also a way to create more growth on your content. When someone comments and they say, great post, and you're like, you didn't read it, did you? I immediately assume the person probably didn't read my post. So I say, what did you think was great about it? Please give me more of your perspective. I'd love to learn more. As soon as you do that, not only number one, does it show that you care, that you're not just posting content to be the cool dude on the block that's the expert on LinkedIn, but it also builds an opportunity for you to create conversation and create dialogue. LinkedIn is a networking app at the end of the day. Most platforms have some level of this built in. Twitter as well, where like if you create a lot of dialogue, Twitter and LinkedIn are going to look at it and say, oh, there's something happening here. Let's show this to more people. But specifically with LinkedIn, it's going to show that, that comment becomes a social share in itself. And so the more of those social shares that you're creating, the more opportunity there is for that post to go further and be seen by more people. And if that person that commented has a nice community of, even 40 to 50 people that really love that person, now those people are going to see that comment, because I'm sure you've been scrolling through LinkedIn and it's been like, oh, such and such commented on such and such post. And you're like, haha, let me go check that out. And so like that happens all the time. And so when you build basically a no questions asked, I'm going to respond to every single comment and create dialogue strategy, you're not only generating tons of content ideas and creating a flow that's easily scalable, but you're also creating a huge networking effect on on the platform itself. And you're giving LinkedIn what it wants. It wants dialogue. It wants communication. And it's like some of the top LinkedIn creators, Luke Matthews, for instance, are the biggest commenters. They comment all the time. And honestly, he's a workaholic. I can't work as hard as that guy does. He's great. I look up to him, but I probably do like a percentage of what he does. And I see a ton of success from it. So I think it's all about like, hey, go produce content, share your ideas, but then also go out there and give a lot to people in the comments on other people's posts and your own posts. And you're going to get a much better result out of it. But specifically for SaaS founders, It builds personality. It builds trust. It builds reciprocity. And if all you're doing is going out there and sending a cold DM campaign that's garbage, all you're gonna do is piss people off. But if you go out there and you comment on their stuff and you engage with them and tell them you like what they had to say, no questions asked, you're going to get a lot further. People are going to come to your page, your landing page, if you have it set up, and they're going to be like, I'm going to follow this guy, and I like the sound of his product. I'm going to check it out now. It's just human psychology, right? So
Understood. So in Web3, we actually call them reply guys, because when
reply guys,
on Twitter, anything that happens like in NFTs, because NFTs are a lot about like community stuff, because all these NFT profile pictures, it's driven by the community itself. And one way to show that is whenever someone talks about it, there are hundreds of people flooding the comment just to reply. And that's one example there. But I see what you're
reply
saying
guys.
here.
I like that. I haven't heard that before. Yeah, I know a lot of reply guys, and I look up to them, and I try to be the best one I can too. But without pissing off my wife and being on my phone all day long, So it's good to have a system if you can.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed from what you were saying is, I think it's all about that human connect, because LinkedIn also has a few auto-generated like messages which you can just click on and then reply, say great work, or those claps emoji, and it's fake. Like it's just not real. So I think being more human and building that connection is what is super important there. Got it.
Totally. Don't get me started with AI generated comments. Oh man. Yeah. It is just ruining LinkedIn right now. Same with Twitter too. And I'm sure a lot of other places. I mean, Instagram has been like the home of promote this on XYZ page for the longest time. So I think they've been gone for a long time. That's been happening forever, but now that's a new thing on LinkedIn. It's unreal how much that's happening.
Yeah, that is true. And also, one thing that Steve Jobs said was the most powerful person is a storyteller. And I see from your experience with poetry and public speaking, but how do you incorporate storytelling and the impactful narratives into SaaS marketing strategies to engage with audience?
Yeah, good old Jobs, right? I mean, he's gone, but we still feel him every single day. I totally agree. I think that I think even Mr. Beast was like, if you want to learn how to tell a great story, go watch a Pixar movie. And Pixar was founded by Jobs, or created by Jobs, basically. But yeah, tell a good story about not just the SaaS product itself, but like what went into creating it. People are like, oh, it does X, Y, Z. And it's so focused on like the what, but it's like you can get to the why a lot more quickly, in the words of Simon Sinek, get to the why of why you built this. There is a pain point on top of pain point on top of pain point that led you to create the catalyst of what it was that it took to create that product. So it's like, a lot of SaaS founders are bootstrappers, they are some of the most rugged entrepreneurs that you can possibly find. They also, not only that, they also have a lot of soft skills and hard skills that they are bringing to the table, where it's like they're software developers, but they also know how to sell. They know how to put together presentations. I just started working with a UX designer, and he's huge on storytelling and actually like building out a story, because you can't sell your product if you can't tell a story about it. So it's like, yeah, I think when it comes down to like being that in that niche, in that realm, it's like, just peel back the layers, go back to who you were 5-10 years ago, even further, and just share those stories in relation to your product. And it all of a sudden becomes like a pitch without people feeling like it's a pitch. And they also get to know you better, and they connect with that. And they're like, wow, this isn't just some obscure thing. It's like, I can feel it in my bones, like what this person's sharing with me. So yeah, it's all about building depth, right? Like if we can do anything with social media, it's like build that depth, build that, peel back those layers, and people will start to understand you better and show a lot more interest, because otherwise it's just another thing, another tool, another great solution. And we see enough of those, right? But storytelling, we don't see enough of that. That's for sure.
Got it. But with storytelling, don't you think, because I can simply like fine tune a lot of models based on something that I really like. Let's say there's a story that I really like. Let's say there's depth, like you said. There's something that I really resonate with, and I know it's gonna fit perfectly for my branding. Can't I just like completely fine tune that model using ChatGPT itself, using the OpenAI plugin, and build my own model, and then just build content off of that? How do you think this is gonna play? Shouldn't we be leveraging AI as well just to get to 10x? because there's so much content that you can churn out. And right now, I cut my workforce into half, and I'm also like building a SaaS product, and it's a self-funded SaaS product, right? Because I was in Web3, and now also just building it using the self-funded money. And so, how do you think it's going to help out? Because as a founder, as I see reduction of like labor and increasing the output. So that's my mindset. For founders like that, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think I understand. So for someone like yourself who cut the team in half or whatever, and you're self-funded, and maybe it may be a lot more appealing to use ChatGPT to help you drum up more content and just put out more, right? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a smart idea. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't knock it. I think it's all about the prompt, right? Like it's all about the beauty of actually knowing what you're doing with the chat GPT that's in front of you. So if I'm answering this correctly, I would say that if it's a great way to at least get you to that starting point where you can say like, tell me 10 things I could talk about within this specific subject surrounding my software product or the industry that you're in. I think that could be a very useful way just to get you to your starting point where it's like you don't need to have a ghostwriter like myself to help you pull those ideas out. Or even in a situation like this where you have a podcast, like there's so many programs now that are like getting smart enough that they can just take the video and clip out, not only for just the video, but also for the written, clip out the best nuggets and actually like analyze ahead of time what's going to be the most viral worthy. I think stuff like that is so helpful where it's like you don't need to hire an editor, not only to create the clips, but also to just figure out, to just take the time that's necessary to dig through that transcript and find the things that are going to work best. So I think there's more than enough opportunity for something like that. And then obviously, like if you create a really great statement or you are able to say something that's really impactful in that short clip, like taking that and throwing it in the chat GPT, giving it the right prompt and the right perspective. I'm a SaaS founder. I work in this specific industry. Write this out into a LinkedIn post. Like if you're able to actually get the model to work right, I think that's smart. Like might as well, as long as you're not using silly hashtags and silly emojis, and then go from there. So I hope I answered your question on that, but I think there's more than enough opportunity, especially with these technologies that are starting to intertwine and create really great results. And honestly, put a lot of editors I know out of business. It's like, you just really don't need it anymore. So yeah, I think that's probably the best way.
Got it. And with social media, right, it plays a very crucial role in building a brand because it's about, as a marketer, as I also see, it's about showing yourself to more people. And if you're able to do that successfully, I think that's what marketing really is. Just present yourself like more people should know about you. And if that's happening, we're winning, right?
Yeah.
So are there any like lesser known unique platforms or tactics that SaaS founders should explore to make their mark and differentiate themselves?
I mean, LinkedIn's great. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think Twitter is fantastic. I think there's a lot of opportunity on Reddit. There's just a very highly engaged group of people on Reddit. I don't really know when it comes to like Instagram or Instagram threads. I feel like those areas are just washed up. Like there's just so many fakers on there, but I may just be biased. I may be a little cynical about those places based on my own experience of building there. And I also just don't think the algorithm favors like organic growth. And it's like you said, a lot of SaaS founders are bootstrapped. They want to do it themselves. And it's like, if you're going to go to a place and do it yourself, you might as well get some sort of reasonable result. It's like, you don't want to just be hammering away for the longest time and not have anybody actually check out what you're doing or give a crap about your story or have the algorithm constantly downplay you. So I would say some of those places are the best. And then get on YouTube if possible. It's like, if you can walk somebody through, like I know this guy that runs a smart pricing table. It's like a proposal writing software. It's really smart. And he's been going on podcasts recently and he's been making YouTube videos and it just immediately, it's so clear how useful that tool is the second he starts yammering away about it on a long form setup. So it's like, maybe what I'm trying to say is get away from the short form stuff and just geek out about what you're doing on like YouTube or a podcast. And I think that's like the next level of like, okay, someone's tuning in and they're convinced by the time that's over because you're just such a geek for what you're doing and you just know it so well. You don't even have to try to really sell it. You know what the benefits are. You just needed a little bit of time to have somebody let you talk about it. I think that would be the best move.
Correct. Because with the non-existent attention span that we have right now, if you're able to hold the audience for more than a minute and have them in a long form content and they're listening to you, I think that's a great move as a founder for sure.
Totally agree.
And some of the ghostwriters and email marketers that I spoke to, they weren't really big on AI at all. I couldn't really understand that, but I see that
Really?
you are using this. Yeah, because they see that as a threat to their job, and you're not, because you're leveraging AI. You're leveraging AI automation and all of these tools to get better at what you're doing. Just to So I see that personalization is also a very crucial thing in marketing. So how do you strike that balance between automated email campaigns and like tailoring messages to individual subscribers' preferences?
I have not become the expert in ChatGPT that I would like to become. I think I'm close to that. I guess for me, like my best tool is using transcription tools where it's like, I turn on my Otter AI, like the thing that was trying to come into the meeting before we started, like having something like that, Read AI or Fireflies or something like that. I know that that's like not even that interesting anymore because we have ChatGPT to just like kind of create it out of nowhere. But like having tools like that completely revolutionized my ability to take notes during a call. And before that, I was like getting on a call with my clients like 2 years ago, and I was just typing notes the whole time, trying to figure out like what would be the best thing to talk about. And I would record it and I could go back through and I could listen, but it was just so arbitrary. And now it's like I have Otter AI constantly there transcribing what I'm saying. And then now it's like I'm trying to find ways to take now I'm moving to that point where it's like I don't even want to dig through the transcription anymore. I would love to find an AI that can help me dig through it myself, find the nuggets for me, and then I can decide if those are good or not, because that's becoming like the most time consuming thing for me. So once I figure that out, which I'm about to, next I'm going to be able to start taking those specific things and saying, hey, ChatGPT, give it the perfect prompt of like, I'm a doctor, I have a doctor client, I could have it talk from a sarcastic, easygoing doctor perspective about a specific subject in whatever way, and get really damn good at that prompt, because as you can see with my lack of ability to detail that I'm still learning. And so, but yeah, no, I do, back to what you're saying, I do see it as a tool that can be very helpful. And I know a ghostwriter on LinkedIn that is a whiz at I know two of them that are just total whizzes at using this stuff, where it's like, I'm amazed at their ability to put together a prompt and use these tools. And it's like, I guess for me, it's like, as exciting as ChatGPT is, there are all these other AI things that are happening too, that are helping me not have to sit here and go through and create all this content. I can still have my 1 hour meeting with my clients each month. I can pitch them questions. I can get their insights, and I can take those insights further and do it way more effectively and efficiently. And then if I maybe need a little bit extra, I can come in with ChatGPT and fill in those gaps, and so on and so forth. Like my sales guy, he was talking to me about this. He's like, we can figure out how to intertwine the client's personality into that specific ChatGPT, where it's like they can actually mimic their tone of voice. And once we get to that point, that's insane. Like if I'm able to like click on my specific client profile within ChatGPT or something like that, or whatever, maybe a different program, that's mind blowing to me, where it's like all of a sudden I don't even have to guess what they would sound like. I know what kind of way they like to talk, and so does the computer. That would be mind blowing. So I hope I answered your question in that sense.
Yeah. Got it. So, do you also like take any kind of like data-driven decisions when you're doing the ghostwriting? Because let's say you put out a content and this might not be working as well as the other one. Do you look at analytics? Do you also and then see what's working and then make decisions out of it, or does it completely rely on storytelling, brand awareness, and marketing?
No, definitely data. So I'm not using Shield yet, but I should, and I will be. But I have just been taking the access points. Like I've been going into my clients' accounts and taking the information that's available to me in there, because luckily LinkedIn does provide a pretty good amount, even if you don't have premium. So I'll go in there and I'll do a quick 30-day analysis every single time I have our meeting. In the first 10 minutes, we'll use that to go over what was doing well the month before. And I'll show the 3 highest performing pieces of content. I'll break down how many impressions they got and figure out the average daily amount, because we're posting once a day. So it's much easier to figure that out than say you got 200 this day or 500 that day or 1,000 that day. And then I can kind of figure out the average of what we're getting off of each post. And then also, most importantly, and this is an underrated thing that people don't do enough on LinkedIn, is actually checking the demographics of each and every single person that you're posting for, where it's like my doctor client, I don't want him to be appealing to a bunch of people in a totally different industry. I want him to be appealing to other medical professionals. And so when I go through and I see that, it's these specific things, and vice versa, like my other client where now I have a UX designer, it's like when we go through those things, I want to see that he's communicating with designers and people within the technology space and stuff like that. So yeah, that's very important to me, where it's like we're talking to the audience that you want to be talking to, and here's how often we are reaching them on every single post. And so like that matters a lot to me. And if I'm not hitting that, like when I first got started creating or taking things really seriously with my demographics, it was all Upwork workers and Fiverr, freelancers. And I'm like, I want founders, I want CEOs, I want leaders within companies. And now when I look at my stuff, it's always CEOs, it's always founders. I owe that to my hashtagging and the way I write, but it takes time to get to that certain place. So if I can get there within the first month and we're hitting the chord with the right type of person, it's just a matter of time before you start making those sales, because you're putting your stuff in front of the right people.
Got it. And in the world of SaaS, right, like customer churn is a major concern, because if the churn rate is around 95% per month, end of the year, your churn rate is basically about 54%, right? Because that's basically you're losing customers there. So from a content strategy perspective, how do you think we can reduce churn rate and increase customer loyalty with content? Is that a possibility? Can we leverage content to do that?
That's a really good question. I feel unprepared almost to answer that. But no, I think it's I need to start thinking about that more. I think if you are able, I guess in an ideal world, you're able to actually engage with your exact clientele. I mean, we can all think about Elon Musk as a great example of someone who communicates directly with all the Tesla bros out there on Twitter, where it's like, if there's a problem, he's actually paying attention to what people are saying and then trying to act on those changes. Obviously, it's an engineering thing. It's a physical product. So it's maybe a little bit harder to get that stuff fixed. But for a SaaS founder, I think it's even easier, where it's like you can take that direct feedback. I haven't hired this guy yet, but he runs a platform that basically allows you to turn your comments into a CRM connection, where it collects all the comments and interactions you've made with your clientele from LinkedIn and brings them into your CRM. And he's had some issues where it's like people come in and they set up a free account, and then 70 something % of them are not signing up and not moving forward to the next step. So he was asking me, when you get in there, can you tell me if there's anything that feels frictiony? Is there something holding you back? So it's I think for a SaaS founder that really embraces that and tries to, I don't know, maybe do polls every week where they ask a question about the 4 things that might not be helping the platform. They get that insight, they build those conversation points. I also think when it comes to retention, it's like, this dude cares, I mean, beyond just the fact that he cares. But if you go that next step where you actually take those insights and you fix that shit immediately, and you make it a very important part of what you're doing, I mean, talk about building loyalty with your followers, where it's like, you're not going to sit there and wonder if something's going to get better. That founder, that 2 or 3 person team, they're small teams, are actually doing the due diligence to work on those, tweak those things and make it better. I would personally look at that and say that stands out. That's good brand building, and that's great product development. If you're able to do something like that. So yeah.
Got it.
Great question.
And actually, I think these are all the questions I see as a SaaS founder myself, and going through your content, these were the questions that I really had. So yeah. And one part about community building is, from day one, what I started was building in public, right? We started sharing the Figma files. We started even hiring in public. So one funny thing that I actually did was, I posted like 5 people that I interviewed. So in the interview section, I just asked them, so this is going out on Twitter. Are you guys okay with it? Yes. Right. And once that was on Twitter, we actually asked people to give some insight. So what do you guys think? This was the portfolio. What do you guys think is okay to build the MVP in the next 4 weeks? And people also gave us suggestions, right? But one comment that I really got was about competitors, right? Because the investor says, I see that you're building in public, but what happens when you're building in public is you're completely open. And I'm also like sharing my marketing strategies outside, and maybe not business secrets, but I'm still building in public, right? I owe it to the audience who are following my journey. How do you think people can manage that? Is it okay? Like, because competition is inevitable, and I'm okay with that. Like, if they come, competition is a sin. Firstly, as a marketer, you must be building a product which should be a blue ocean, but then there's still a point, right? There's still a point. There's that inflection point. So how do you think founders can work on that?
Where it's like you don't quite know what if there's like too much to share or something, like you give away some of those business secrets, but you don't necessarily want the competition to capture that stuff and use it against you, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I think if it truly, I do believe that building in public is incredibly important. And I have had moments where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't post that or whatever, So I think if your instincts are knocking on the door and they're like, you know what, let's keep this one. Let's think about it, because I do think like if you are genuinely feeling like something is making you uncomfortable to share in that sense, where it's like you do have that concern. I mean, just because you're being vulnerable with some stuff and being truthful about this part of the journey doesn't necessarily mean you have to peel back the entire thing and showcase it all. So I guess my response would be trust your gut. If your gut is telling you like, don't share that, the competition could use that against you, or even if you aren't necessarily, it's not that big of a deal to you. I do think that it's worth a little bit of discretion. I mean, like as much as the best personal brands in the world share nearly everything. I mentioned Luke Matthews. He shares a lot of stuff with everybody. I know he's not a SaaS founder. I know he doesn't have a ton of competition in that realm, and he's a huge name, but there are some things that he does not share, and it's like, I think as a SaaS founder, I think you have the discretion to choose if something is worth sharing or not. And if it's genuinely going to make you like check back on your Twitter over and over again and make sure nothing bad has happened yet, it's like, that's stressful. And it's like, all of a sudden content becomes a little bit hard on you. And even I won't share some things on my LinkedIn. And then there are times where I'll share something and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I get a great result from it too. So it's a hit or miss kind of thing. Right. But yeah, I hope that gives you an idea of sort of how I would approach that, just listen to your inner wisdom, if you will. And just try to trust yourself in that regard.
Correct. But then there's also like, think about us, like as human beings, we are non-fungible, right? Basically, our thumbprints don't match. How do we expect other people to just match with us? What I think it's about making your own tribe, building your own brand with all that perspective that you have, because that has to be different. That will be different, right? I think showing that on Twitter, showing that on different platforms really helpful. Sure. Yeah. And these are some good notes that you're giving us, Daniel. And I'm pretty sure that all these SaaS founders, even Web3 founders, can learn a lot from this, for sure. And
I hope so.
Absolutely. And now we're actually at the end of our interview there, so our podcast there. So we have a couple of questions, but then we also want to dive deeper into why SaaS? Like, why SaaS? Because I see that you're niched down to SaaS because it's a software as a service and it's highly scalable. But why SaaS? You could have done it for different fintechs, biotech, but why specifically SaaS? Like, why not other different marketplaces or something? Why SaaS?
Yeah, and I would even go more specific and like, go vertical SaaS, where it's like you're providing a super niche solution to a very specific market, like HubSpot versus where it's like the CRM solution for and plus a whole bunch of other solutions. It's like I almost would lean away from that because those teams probably already have huge budgets, huge groups of people I would have to interact with. So it's like it's less wholesome. It's just bigger in that sense. So like, even getting more specific on like a vertical solution for something in like real estate or whatever, like I think that things like that are even more fun to write for because those people can build on one platform and have one personal brand and create really great results for a very small amount of money and ultimately sell a lot of their product as well. So, but to really boil it down, I had a conversation with my co-founder, Phil Rivers, and like we went back and forth about this. We're like, we were getting so many random people into our pipeline that were just not the right fit. And we were a little bit more specific back then, but I was like, let's just go SaaS. Let's focus on software. And he started thinking about it too. And he was just like, look, like every SaaS founder is building something that takes a long time to build. They need to have that networking effect where people know about it. They're able, like you said, they need to be building in public. But on top of that, they need to have that network so that when they want to exit, which a lot of SaaS founders do want to exit at some point and have a clean exit, as much as they want to build and build and build for the next 20 years, more than likely they're going to come to that place where someone is going to want to buy what they have and integrate it into what they have. And it's going to be difficult to say no to that. And so when that time comes, they're going to want to restart and have a starting platform to get to that next phase. So having a brand is incredibly important. And on the flip side, where it's like a funded founder, where it's not just bootstrapped or self-funded, like if you're a funded SaaS founder, you have that extra money to actually invest into something like LinkedIn. So, one of the biggest problems I've run into is that people just don't have the money to spend on building a brand. And it is an investment. And it's like when I first got started, I was the ghostwriter for entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs are often times pretty broke a lot of the time, and they want to do everything themselves, and I get that. I get that feeling as well. So my third or fourth point, I don't know where I'm at, but yeah, my fourth or third point would be like the fact that they don't have time. Like you're building something that's very complicated. You are having meetings, you're pitching people, you're doing a lot of this stuff that taking out a part-time job to create a personal brand is absolutely off the table. So it's like the time savings itself is worth the money, even if like you're not getting the greatest results right in the beginning. The time savings is where you're getting the investment back. And for someone who's like an entrepreneur who's starving and dying for some new work or whatever else, they're going to be banging down my door after 9 posts and saying, "Where's the sales?" And it takes time to build trust.
And many also argue that product-led growth is very important. But what's your take on this? Like, how does a content and marketing strategy evolve in a product-led growth scenario?
So say it again. Sorry. Where it's I got thrown off. My wife called me, so I'm just like.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So like most people like they argue that product-led growth is the future of that'd be like SaaS or even Web3 products. What's your take on this as a content and marketing strategy as it evolves in like product-led scenario?
Yeah, so I think that so like product led growth in the sense that like it's only gonna the product is all that matters, and it's like I guess like if we're going back to like the Steve Jobs example, it's like you know that guy created a vision for the future, and it's like yeah, I know that's one of the biggest examples, but actually have brand attached to what was going on. Like if we look at Microsoft, all I can think of is Bill Gates and his terrible sweater and everything else that's happened, the last few years I won't mention. But yeah, it's like you think about those things and I always think about Apple and I think about innovation. And so it's like having a great product is amazing, but also having a great founder who's able to pitch that idea and that story to the people that are buying it and get their buy-in and get their interest and actually keep them transfixed on what's next, and if we don't have a pinnacle focal point for people to actually put their eyes on and relate with and connect with, Steve Jobs, he was a hippie, he took acid, like he was a free thinker, like so it wasn't just that he was creating a really really awesome product, it was also that he was a really interesting individual. And I think that having that product, a great product is great, but having a great founder and a great team to pitch that to the rest of the world and create those relationships and show people that they are trying to do something different and solve a problem, but also help other humans along that path. I think that's really where and also too, like, we're just going to have more and more solutions, right? Like, you don't have to be a coder to create something amazing now. It's like, and so we're just going to get inundated with more and more solutions. And it's like, how do you stand out and not just have all these people who have low attention spans, who are burned out on all these solutions? How do we actually get them to stay committed to what you're doing? That to me seems like the part that personal branding really comes into play and starts to really push things to that next level. But I know I'm biased at the end of the day, but that'd be my best way to look at it.
So for the founders who are actually focused on building this community and the follower base, how do they convert that into newsletters and, let's say, ultimately into paying customers? Because that's the goal, right? I mean, doesn't matter how much content that we're putting out. In the end, we want to convert them into email lists and put them in our CRM and convert them into paying customers. How do you think that can happen with content?
Yeah, like LinkedIn, not giving away the whole farm in the content, like really creating your stuff into teasers and creating short form, and not just giving it all in the feed and saying like, here's enough to where like some people will just post a blog post and say, go check out my blog, or, subscribe to my newsletter. I'm talking about XYZ. And it's like, give me a little bit more, because I don't want to click and leave the site. And LinkedIn doesn't want you to leave the site, so they're going to downplay that content. So I think giving a teaser, giving a little snippet. I know a guy I'm writing for who's a CMO, and basically he writes a newsletter every Saturday, and then like all of his content for the next week will be inspired by that newsletter, or vice versa. So I think making the two intertwine, where it's like, oh, I'm getting a lot out of this free content that's online, but I'd really like to get a little bit more, and I'd really like to not have to check my feed all the time for it. Give people that reason. And then also, not just making them sign up for a newsletter, but giving them something for free. I think that immediately receiving a digital product in your email inbox right after you sign up is ideal. So immediately you have something sticky for people to latch onto and learn from you, or even creating a sequence. I mean, a lot of people like to do that, where it's like a 7-day boot camp once you sign up, where it's like, you're going to get this one thing starting from this point, and then by 7 days you're going to be damn good at XYZ or whatever. So yeah, like creating teasers out of your content, and also, but going the extra mile so that if they don't want to sign up, they can still engage with it. They can still enjoy it. Because that part gets left out way too often, where it's like, yeah, go check out my link. It's like, I'm not clicking your link. I don't know you. I don't trust you. So giving people that space to actually get to know you better through the content, and then make that decision on their own, would be my best advice.
Got it, Daniel. I think those were some great insights. Actually, we went into community building, how SaaS founders can leverage AI from content strategy, brand building, public speaking, and I think super important. All of these combined, I think it's like a package thing that SaaS founders can definitely utilize 100%. And so, in the end, how do you think founders, and some of my friends are also founders, they can connect with you? Um, how does that happen? Like, is there a call they can have, or what's the process like?
Yeah, I'm working on getting my website back up, so that's in the works. So if you want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Kading, Kading. I got the same orange picture on all my profiles. And then if you're not on LinkedIn, it bores the crap out of you. No worries. I do understand that. If you have not curated your following, you can find me on Twitter under at brand with Dan, because I'm very brand focused, but it also rhymes with my name, so but I'm brand with Dan on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and also IG threads as well. So I repurpose across all those places. LinkedIn is my mothership, and everything kind of trickles out from there. But yeah, if you want to connect with me, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to have a chat. I'm happy to talk it up. At the end of the day, once we start talking to each other, my content's going to start hitting your feed anyways. So even if you don't want to do anything with me, no worries. You'll be hearing from me. So, and then, yeah, I also have a scheduling tool on my profile. If you want to set up a call with my team, my sales guy, Rory, would love to shoot the shit with you and go back and forth, figure out if it's a good fit to work with my agency. But my agency is called Ghostwrite, if you're interested in that. But yeah, we help put out content carousels and also handle your email and build out your funnel in addition to that. So yeah, that is the best way to find me. So appreciate you letting me give that shout out.
Yes, it was amazing, Daniel. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for being on the pod. We can see you. And what you mentioned there again, orange profile everywhere. That's how I know. That's how I know it's Daniel right there with the orange profile.
Yeah,
Amazing,
it's my
Daniel.
trademark color. Yeah.
So,
Appreciate that. It's been great talking
yes,
to
sir.
you though. Thank you so
Yes,
much
sir.
for this.